and they're both married, one fan viewed. The Keeping Up with the Kardashian star appears to blast about Kim Kardashian, shows that he is suffering from low self-esteem.
Los Angeles. Late evening. The year is 2022. Inside a softly lit interview studio, cameras hum quietly as producers whisper instructions across headsets. Across the room sits Kim Kardashian. Perfectly composed. Calm. Experienced. She has done thousands of interviews in her life. But tonight feels different. Because the question about to be asked is one she has spent years trying to leave behind. The interviewer glances at his notes, hesitates, then finally asks, "Kim, there's a conspiracy theory going around online about the tape from years ago. Some people claim it wasn't leaked, but planned. What do you say to that?" For just a moment, the room goes quiet. Kim doesn't answer immediately. Instead, she exhales slowly. Her eyes shift slightly toward the camera. And for the first time in the entire interview, her confident smile fades. Not dramatically, not theatrically, just enough for viewers to notice. Then she says something no one expected. But what she said only raised more questions. Because to understand that moment, we have to rewind 20 years. Back to the early 2000s. Back to a world where fame worked very differently. Back to a young woman navigating a city built on attention. And a single decision. That would change everything. Stories about celebrity scandals usually follow a predictable path. A shocking revelation. A wave of headlines. Then eventually, the world moves on. But some stories refuse to disappear. They evolve. They grow. They transform into something larger than the original event. The scandal involving Kim Kardashian became one of those stories. Because it didn't just launch a career. It transformed the entire ecosystem of fame. Reality television exploded. Social media influence began its rise. Celebrity branding entered a new era. But behind that transformation lies a lingering question people still debate today. Was it an accident of circumstance? Or something far more calculated? To answer that, we have to understand the world Kim Kardashian came from. Because she didn't start as a global icon. She started as something much more ordinary. A friend. A daughter. A young woman trying to figure out where she belonged in Los Angeles. And the road that led her to the center of one of the most talked about controversies in entertainment history was far more complicated than most people realize. Los Angeles in the late 1990s was a city obsessed with celebrity. But fame back then worked differently. You couldn't become famous overnight through social media. There was no TikTok, no Instagram, no viral algorithms. To become a star, you usually needed one of three things: a hit movie, a chart-topping song, or a powerful connection in the entertainment industry. Kim Kardashian had something close to the third. Her father, Robert Kardashian, had gained national attention during the O.J. Simpson trial. That trial became one of the most watched legal dramas in American history. For young Kim, it meant growing up close to the orbit of fame. But proximity to celebrity is not the same as being a celebrity. And during her early 20s, Kim was still searching for her own path. She worked behind the scenes in Hollywood circles, organizing closets, styling outfits, building friendships with people already famous. One of those friends would become particularly important. A young socialite who was already dominating tabloids at the time, Paris Hilton. Paris represented a new kind of celebrity, famous not necessarily for traditional talent, but for lifestyle, attention, and personality. She was everywhere. Nightclubs, magazines, reality television. And Kim Kardashian was often right beside her. At first, mostly in the background. Watching, learning, observing how fame worked. Because behind every photograph, behind every headline, there was always something else happening. Something strategic. Something intentional. Something that would later shape Kim's understanding of the media world. But no one could have predicted the moment that would bring her name into global headlines. A moment that began quietly, privately, between two people who believed their relationship would remain just that. Private. In the early 2000s, Kim Kardashian began dating singer Ray J. At the time, Ray J was already known in the music industry. He had connections, television appearances, and a growing fan base. Their relationship unfolded mostly away from the spotlight. For a while, they were simply another young Hollywood couple navigating the chaos of Los Angeles nightlife. But fame has a strange gravity. It pulls private moments into public spaces. And sometimes, those moments become impossible to contain. Years later, one particular recording would surface. A recording that no one expected the public to see. The tape quickly spread across the internet. Headlines exploded. Tabloids rushed to publish every possible detail. And suddenly, the name Kim Kardashian was everywhere. For many people watching from the outside, the situation looked like a devastating invasion of privacy. But as the years passed, a different narrative began to circulate online. A theory, a suspicion, a possibility that some believed explained everything. According to the conspiracy theory, the leak wasn't accidental. It was planned, carefully, strategically. But was that theory based on reality? Or simply the internet trying to create drama where none existed? Because when something changes someone's life forever, people naturally search for explanations. And sometimes, those explanations grow into stories far more dramatic than the truth itself. But what happened behind closed doors during those early days of the scandal would later become one of the most debated topics in celebrity culture. And the truth behind those events is far more complicated than most people realize. The internet in the early 2000s was a very different place. There were no trending hashtags. No TikTok algorithms pushing clips to millions in seconds. But one thing the internet already knew how to do very well was spread scandal. And when the tape involving Kim Kardashian and Ray J began circulating online in 2007, it didn't spread like wildfire. It spread like an explosion. Because unlike today's oversaturated media world, scandals back then were rare enough to dominate the entire news cycle. Entertainment blogs began posting hints. Tabloids rushed to confirm details. Forums filled with speculation. But what shocked people most wasn't just the existence of the tape. It was who was involved. Because until that moment, Kim Kardashian was not yet the cultural phenomenon the world would soon know. She was known mostly as a friend and stylist to Paris Hilton. Someone who appeared in paparazzi photos. Someone present in celebrity circles. But not yet a star herself. That would change overnight. It began quietly. A rumor posted on an entertainment gossip website. A vague headline hinting that a private video involving Kim Kardashian had surfaced. At first, many people dismissed it. Hollywood rumors were constant. Most of them disappeared within days. But this one didn't disappear. Instead, more websites picked it up. Then larger outlets. Soon the story reached mainstream media. Suddenly, television entertainment programs were discussing it. Magazine editors were scrambling to confirm details. And Kim Kardashian's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Friends, reporters, family members, everyone asking the same question. Is it true? Inside the Kardashian family home, the atmosphere was tense. Kim sat in the living room staring at her phone. She had already received dozens of messages. Some supportive, some curious, some intrusive. Her mother, Kris Jenner, walked into the room holding a stack of printed news articles. Kris had spent years around the entertainment industry. She understood how quickly a story could spiral out of control. But even she hadn't expected something like this. She placed the papers on the table. The headlines were brutal. They used words like shocking, scandalous, explosive. Kim felt her stomach tighten. Because what had once been a private moment from years earlier was now being dissected by millions of strangers. Los Angeles is a city built on stories. Every day, someone arrives hoping to become famous. Every day, someone leaves disappointed. And every once in a while, a moment occurs that changes everything. When the tape began circulating, the media immediately sensed something bigger than a typical scandal. Because scandals involving unknown people disappear quickly, but scandals involving someone connected to Hollywood's social elite, that's different. Producers began calling. Tabloid photographers started waiting outside restaurants Kim used to visit. Paparazzi cars followed her whenever she drove through the city. The pressure was intense. But what made the situation even more complicated was the timing. Because behind the scenes, another opportunity was beginning to take shape. An opportunity that would alter the trajectory of Kim Kardashian's life forever. During the chaos surrounding the scandal, television executives had already been discussing a potential reality series featuring the Kardashian family. Reality TV was booming. Shows like The Simple Life, starring Paris Hilton, had proven that audiences loved watching the lives of wealthy, dramatic families. Producers were searching for something similar. Something fresh. Something chaotic. Something real. And the Kardashian family had all the ingredients. A strong-willed mother managing the family brand. 3 very different sisters. Complex relationships. Business ventures. And now, a media storm that had placed their last name in headlines everywhere. Some television executives saw the scandal as a risk. Others saw it as something else entirely. Visibility. Because in the entertainment industry, visibility can be incredibly powerful. The more people recognize a name, the easier it becomes to build a show around that name. But inside the Kardashian household, emotions were mixed. Kim felt humiliated, exposed, overwhelmed. She wasn't thinking about television opportunities. She was thinking about damage control, about protecting her family, about surviving a situation that felt impossible to escape. But Kris Jenner was already thinking several steps ahead. Kris had spent decades observing how Hollywood worked. She knew one brutal truth about the entertainment industry. Scandals fade, but attention can be redirected. And if handled carefully, even a negative moment can transform into something positive. Late one evening, Kris sat with Kim at the kitchen table. Outside, the Los Angeles skyline glowed softly under the night sky. Kim looked exhausted, emotionally drained. "This is ruining everything," she said quietly. Kris didn't respond immediately. Instead, she studied her daughter carefully. Then she said something unexpected. "Or, what if it's the beginning of everything?" Kim looked confused. How could something like this possibly help anything? Kris leaned back in her chair. "Because right now, the entire country is talking about you. But what happens next? That part is up to us." As the weeks passed, the story refused to disappear. More media outlets picked it up. More rumors began circulating. Some stories claimed the tape had been stolen. Others suggested someone close to the situation had leaked it. But as the speculation grew, a darker theory started forming online. A theory that would eventually evolve into the conspiracy still discussed today. Some internet commentators began asking a provocative question. What if the tape wasn't leaked at all? What if it had been released intentionally? At first, the theory sounded absurd. After all, why would anyone want something so private exposed to the entire world? But conspiracy theories often gain momentum when they connect seemingly unrelated events. And observers started noticing something interesting. Shortly after the scandal exploded, the Kardashian family reality show was announced. That show was called Keeping Up with the Kardashians. For conspiracy theorists, the timeline seemed suspicious. A scandal brings massive public attention. Then suddenly a reality show launches, featuring the same person at the center of the controversy. To some observers, the sequence felt too convenient. And once an idea like that appears online, it rarely disappears. When Keeping Up with the Kardashians premiered in 2007, many critics predicted it would fail. Reality TV shows came and went constantly. Most lasted a single season before disappearing. But something about the Kardashian family captured viewers' attention. Maybe it was the family dynamics. Maybe it was the humor. Maybe it was the unapologetic display of wealth and ambition. Or maybe It was the lingering curiosity about the scandal that had introduced Kim Kardashian to the world. Whatever the reason, the show slowly began gaining popularity. Week after week, more viewers tuned in. The audience watched Kim navigate relationships. They watched her business ventures grow. They watched the family argue, reconcile, and evolve. And as the seasons passed, something remarkable happened. Kim Kardashian transformed from a scandal headline into a cultural powerhouse. Her brand expanded. Fashion deals appeared. Business ventures multiplied. Social media followers skyrocketed. Within a decade, she became one of the most influential figures in entertainment. But the conspiracy theory about the tape never disappeared. Instead, it grew stronger. Because as Kim's success expanded, skeptics began asking an uncomfortable question. Was it really just luck? Or had someone understood the power of media attention long before anyone else did? Fast forward more than a decade. The world of celebrity had changed dramatically. Social media dominated culture. Influencers built empires online. Reality television had become a permanent part of entertainment. And Kim Kardashian was no longer just a celebrity. She was a global brand, a business mogul, a billionaire entrepreneur. But every so often, the old theory resurfaced. YouTube videos analyzing the timeline, podcast debates, online threads revisiting every detail of the original scandal. Some believed the conspiracy wholeheartedly. Others dismissed it as internet fantasy. But eventually, someone decided to ask the question directly. And that moment would bring the story full circle. Back to the interview room. Back to the moment we saw at the beginning of this story. The moment when Kim Kardashian was asked about the theory that had followed her for years. And when she finally responded, her words surprised everyone. Because instead of reacting with anger, or dismissing the theory outright, she said something much more complicated. Something that left the interviewer silent. The strange thing about conspiracy theories is that most of them eventually disappear. They fade with time. Memories blur. People move on to the next controversy. But the theories surrounding the tape involving Kim Kardashian and Ray J never fully went away. Instead, it lingered quietly in the background of internet culture. Every few years, it resurfaced. Someone would revisit the timeline. Someone would analyze the details. Someone would ask the same unsettling question again. What if it wasn't a leak? For over a decade, the question remained mostly speculative. But then something happened that reignited the entire debate. And this time, it came from someone directly involved. And viewers wondering if there was more to the story than anyone realized. By the early 2020s, the Kardashian brand had grown into something massive. Businesses, fashion lines, global partnerships, social media dominance, reality television history. The family that once filmed chaotic moments inside their Los Angeles home had become one of the most recognizable dynasties in entertainment. But with success comes scrutiny. And the internet has a long memory. Clips from old interviews resurfaced. Forum posts from years earlier were rediscovered. YouTube channels began dissecting every moment of the original scandal. Then one day, a new wave of headlines appeared. And the person at the center of them was Ray J. For years, Ray J had rarely spoken publicly about the tape. When he did, his comments were usually brief, carefully worded, avoiding deeper discussion. But suddenly, that silence changed. During a series of interviews and online discussions, Ray J began addressing the long-standing conspiracy theory directly. He claimed something that immediately shocked viewers. According to him, the situation surrounding the tape had been misunderstood, not necessarily in the way conspiracy theorists believed, but also not exactly the way the public had been told. Ray J suggested that the release of the tape had been more complicated than a simple leak, more structured, more organized, more intentional. Those statements spread across the internet almost instantly. Clips circulated on social media. Podcast hosts debated the claims. Commentators analyzed every word. Because if even part of what Ray J was suggesting were true, it would completely change the narrative people had believed for years. Within hours, headlines began appearing everywhere. Ray J breaks silence on tape controversy. New claims about Kardashian scandal. Did the public get the story wrong? Some viewers immediately believed Ray J's statements. Others remained skeptical. After all, more than a decade had passed. Memories change. Perspectives shift. And in the world of celebrity media, narratives are often shaped by many different forces. But the claims had accomplished something powerful. They reopened a conversation that had once seemed finished. Suddenly, people were revisiting the past again, analyzing old footage, reading past interviews, comparing timelines. And one detail continued to stand out: the launch of Keeping Up with the Kardashians shortly after the scandal. For conspiracy theorists, that connection still felt suspicious. But for others, it was simply coincidence. Because in Hollywood, timing often creates narratives that appear more dramatic than reality. Still, the public wanted answers. And that meant eventually someone would have to respond. Inside the Kardashian world, the sudden resurgence of the controversy created tension. Not panic. The family had faced countless controversies before. But this situation was different. Because it involved something deeply personal. Something from the very beginning of Kim Kardashian's public life. Late one evening, inside a quiet living room in Los Angeles, members of the family gathered to discuss the situation. Phones buzzed constantly with notifications, news alerts, social media mentions, messages from publicists. Kim sat quietly listening, her expression calm but serious. For years, she had worked to build an empire based on business, fashion, and influence. She had studied law, advocated for prison reform, built billion-dollar companies. Yet somehow, the conversation kept returning to the same moment from 2007, and the theories surrounding it. Finally, someone asked the question that had been hovering in the room all evening. Are you going to respond? Kim paused before answering, because responding carried risks. Addressing conspiracy theories can sometimes make them grow even larger, but staying silent can also fuel speculation. In the modern media landscape, silence often becomes its own kind of statement. And eventually, Kim Kardashian decided it was time to speak. The interview took place months later, inside a quiet studio designed to feel comfortable. Controlled lighting, minimal distractions, a calm environment where serious conversations could happen. The interviewer was careful, respectful, but also curious, because the question everyone wanted answered was unavoidable. At first, the conversation focused on Kim's business ventures, her work in criminal justice reform, her evolving role as a public figure. But gradually, the topic shifted. The interviewer leaned forward slightly. Kim, he began, there's been a lot of discussion online recently about the tape from years ago. Kim nodded. She had expected the question. Then came the moment. The theory that some people believe is that the release wasn't accidental. What do you say to that? For a few seconds, the room was completely silent. Kim took a slow breath, her expression thoughtful. Not angry, not defensive, just reflective. Then she began speaking.